Everything I'm about to say, everything that I'm saying at the moment was predestined and prescripted before the Big Bang. Everything you think about whilst you hear me speaking in this video, in this audio recording, was predestined and prescripted before the Big Bang. So there's this question, the question arises, when you get into the enlightenment trip, the spirituality trip, you become acquainted with the idea of ego, and you become acquainted with the idea of soul or spirit. Pretty soon you start wondering, who is experiencing this temporary physical life? Well, there's only one kind of true consciousness. There's only one true consciousness. That's an eternal consciousness. And so there's only one awareness that is aware of this physical experience. And the thing is, that awareness, that consciousness, that eternal consciousness, which is perfect eternal conscious energy, it is so infinitely intelligent, you see, that it is able to bamboozle itself. It's able to create a script, a dream story, a dream life like this one we're living at the moment, and it's able to intentionally forget that it created it. And so the experience here is novel. The experience is mysterious. How did this happen? Who did this? How long will it go on? So, in one sense, this physical temporary experience that we're having as a human being is, in one sense, it's like a drug experience. Because you don't say there's two people experiencing your LSD trip or your DMT trip. It's you, isn't it? It's just one awareness. One awareness is experiencing that so-called altered state of reality when they take a drug. And so that's what I'm saying. It's not like there's some part of you as a consciousness, as an eternal consciousness, that is somehow unaffected. In other words, you're all here and you're experiencing all of this. There's not a part of you that's not experiencing this, you see. There's not two different awarenesses. There's not you and your soul. That's the way we speak. We speak as if there's me and my soul. My soul told me, my soul guided me. But it's just a matter of speaking. This is a story that's unfolding moment by moment. So there isn't really any guidance or navigation going on at all. You're always falling into place, falling into step, moment by moment, as it's been scripted. This is all unfolding and unfurling, moment by moment. Every thought, every feeling, every idea, every impulse is occurring moment by moment. It's unfolding, it's unfurling, and you're falling into it. So when you die, it's you, like when you recover or wake up from a drug experience. You return to reality. You return to sanity and sobriety. In this case, we would call it spiritual sanity and sobriety. That's what death leads to. Waking up in your home state of awareness of spiritual sanity and sobriety. It's natural. It happens easily. You don't have to practice for it. You don't have to believe it's going to happen. It just happens automatically. Just like waking up in your bed every day happens automatically. You don't have to practice before you go to sleep each night to train yourself to wake up, do you? Waking up just happens naturally. And that's what it feels like when you die. No matter how you are killed or die, it's like waking up from a dream. You're back in spiritual sanity and sobriety. It's your home state of awareness. I call it reality heaven. It never changes. It's the same fucking song over and over and over, forever and ever and ever. We are perfect eternal conscious energy. We are perfect eternal thinking, feeling entities. We are amongst our equals. We are all perfectly equal and equally perfect to one another. Not one of us was born or invented or imagined or dreamed. We have simply always existed as life itself, which is perfect eternal conscious energy. Perfect eternal thinking, feeling entities, each who is aware that it is a unique thinking, feeling entity amongst its equals. What are they to do with their ability to think and feel and be aware forever and ever and ever? They can't change. They can't diminish. They can't improve. They can't develop. They can't evolve. So what are they to do? Well, obviously, because they're infinitely intelligent, they have an imagination, and they're able to spend as much time as they want, unlimited time in the middle of forever, to conceive and script and design one of these physical temporary lives, every moment of it, in collusion and collaboration with our other fellow perfect spirits. And then when the script is finalized, at least in this particular dream world, it starts with a big bang. And from that point of big bang, it all unfolds and unfurls automatically until the very end. There's nothing that can interfere with it. There's nothing that can interrupt it. There's no way to speed things up or slow things down. So there's no guidance. There's no dead people giving you hints or clues or encouragement. There's no evil spirits. There's no demonic spirits. There's only one kind of true consciousness, and that's eternal consciousness. Perfect eternal conscious energy. Perfect spirits. They're all perfectly equal and equally perfect to one another. They can't change. They can't be harmed. They can't be destroyed. So they created this dream world. And within this dream world, there's people that do very, very bad things. But they're not demons. They're not truly evil in the way that's bandied about, as if there's actual evil spirits. There isn't. The only spirit there is perfect eternal conscious energy. That's the only kind of spirit that exists. What you have a hard time believing or understanding is that a perfect spirit would want to dream a dream where it plays an evil role, where it does evil things like give people injections full of syphilis or gonorrhea or AIDS or whatever the fuck, But perfect eternal conscious energy knows that it's unthreatenable, knows that it can't be harmed, knows that this physical temporary world is the equivalent of a cartoon, spiritually speaking. Even though there's terrible, horrible, atrocious, painful, miserable, icky, horrible, vile shit in this existence, it's not harming or threatening or changing anything real. The only thing that is real is perfect eternal conscious energy. The only thing that is real is the eternal consciousness that is experiencing this temporary physical nightmare. It is a nightmare. Definitely a fucking nightmare. A paradise happy dappy deepy whippy dream. Let me say that again. A paradisical dream isn't going to have scorpions, spiders, isn't going to have shit, the stench of shit, vomit, the stench of vomit. It isn't going to have gonorrhea or syphilis. Imagine that, man. One of the most fun activities a fucking human can have, sex, and there's got to be these fucking vile, horrible components thrown in. You don't know who you're going to have sex with, who's going to have genital warts, who's going to have genital herpes, who's going to have syphilis, gonorrhea, AIDS, whatever the fuck. So don't tell me this is some kind of paradise, bitch. It's not. It's an intentional fucking hell. And what makes it all the more hellish and insidious and vile and diabolical is the fact that 75% of the time things are okay. You know? So, there's only one consciousness, truly. And that's perfect eternal conscious energy. And this is a dream. And a dream is a dream is a dream. So even if within the dream you believe or pursue something called awakening or enlightenment, it's still all part of the dream. And even when you think you're awake or you think you have identified other people who are awake, they're not awake, bitch. They're just dreaming just like you. Just dreamers, Jack. Ain't nobody getting ahead. Ain't nobody falling behind spiritually. It's all just truly a load of cosmic bullshit, this entire existence. And in your pursuit of enlightenment and spiritual awakening, you'll have a variety of highs. You'll have a variety of phases where you feel like you're the captain of the ship and things are, grooving along in a beautiful way due to your effort and discipline and focus and will and intention. But the story will twist and turn. The circumstances, situations, and conditions will change, and you will suffer bad moments. You will have illness, injury, disease, misfortune, grief, worry, disappointment, horror, frustration, self-loathing. When I was growing up, when I was researching, you might say, enlightenment and spiritual awakening and all that, there was no one like me talking about this stuff. And you notice all these cats that, make their videos about enlightenment or spiritual awakening and so forth. They do their best to just, put forth their best face forward, you might say. They pretend to always be bright and shiny. And if they admit to any kind of darkness, they only do so in a very superficial, generalized way. They don't really express it or give voice to it. So the whole awoke thing, enlightened thing, it's all just a performance. They're all just pretending. It's very important to their vanity and ego, that they are perceived as being enlightened, as being awoke, as being special, as being elite. Elitism is extremely strong within the whole awakening, enlightenment trip. You think that you're awake while all the rest of them are asleep, and yet you're just as very much asleep as them. And just because you may experience some convincing sense of clarity, it doesn't mean that you're not going to suffer. Here's the thing. Enlightenment, spiritual awakening, why does anybody truly ever, pursue it? It's because they think that it's some kind of secret cheat code, secret way to avoid eating their fair share of shit that they destined for themselves. They think that there's a way that they can stop being miserable. Or they think there's a way that they can They think that there's a way that they can go through the shit, without it sticking to them. Or they think that they can eat shit and convince themselves it tastes like ice cream. Or they can, they think that perhaps if they can't altogether avoid pain, illness, injury, disease, misfortune, and so forth, that they'll somehow be emotionally immune to it, that they won't suffer it. But this is the world where all the color and the action is. The dream world the dream story with all the different emotions, all those things that you may feel inclined to try to avoid or prevent, are the very things that we came here to experience. And the point is you do the best you can, or so it seems, to cope as best you can, but at the end of the day, you're still going to suffer. And it seems, although it's not true, I don't think, but it does seem like you suffer more when you believe and insist that there must be a way to live this life without suffering. There must be a way to live this life without getting disappointed, without getting irritable, without getting angry, without getting frustrated, without self-loathing, without having hurt feelings or what have you. But no, you're here to roll and tumble and cry and laugh, all of it. That's what you're here for, because it's not available in your home state of awareness except as concepts and ideas. Here's where you get to vibrate it. Here's where you get to feel it and be lost in it and immersed in it. And as I say in lots of recent videos, the only plausible, reasonable reason why we as perfect eternal conscious energy would conceive and experience a ridiculous, insane dream like this one is, number one, we're going to try to, live out every dream imaginable throughout forever and ever. And of course, we'll never get that done. But the other fact that I've been emphasizing is that in our home state of awareness, reality heaven, it's like being in a room with a broken record, playing the same song over and over. It's very, our home state of awareness is the epitome of simplicity, fearlessness, and good news. It's the epitome of peace and bliss, which means there's absolutely nothing you have to do. There's nothing you have to think. There's nothing you have to reach for. There's nothing you have to try to prevent or avoid. And so you have absolutely no fear. You know that you are perfect eternal conscious energy. You know that you have always been alive and will always be alive unconditionally. And so you're able to just rest, which, you might think of it as a sort of form of meditation. Here in this physical world, there ain't no motherfucking human being that is experiencing any kind of true silence or any true meditative peace. All you motherfuckers are doing are you're fooling around with variations of sleep. That's all you're doing with your meditation. You're just playing variations with sleep, variations with that sort of pre-dream zone and so forth. But in reality heaven, when you rest in peace, that's where we're talking about true quietude, where you literally do not have to think anything. Here in this life, every thought, every feeling is unfolding, is unspooling, is unrolling moment by moment. You don't have that experience in reality heaven in your home state of awareness. There, it truly is quiet. There aren't all these thoughts unfolding and unrolling, and memories flickering and flashing, and no, it's very, very quiet. Very, very peaceful. And that gets boring after a while. Doesn't that make sense to you? That, just imagine you being just as a human being. Go off to a room, one room, put on a record that plays the same song over and over and over, or maybe just, one part of a song over and over and over. Meditate on that, get entranced with that, or don't play a fucking record. But just, go and sit and try and be a mushroom somewhere, or go and try to sleep for as much as you can. Eventually, you get bored with sleeping. Eventually, you get bored with meditating. Eventually, you get bored with heaven, with reality heaven, with your home state of awareness. And you want to forget it. You want to take a vacation from home from your home state of awareness, which is just the same fucking state. There's nothing to know there. I mean, there's just the truth and the reality there is not complex. It's not science fiction. There's hardly anything to know at all. The only thing worth knowing is the fact that you're perfect eternal conscious energy and you're amongst your equals who are perfectly equal and equally perfect to you. None of you are older or younger, dumber or smarter. What the fuck more else is there to know? And so, as I say, and that's very, comforting and peaceful, blissful. But after that, you want to forget it for a while. And so I think it's no doubt great joy and delight to hook up with some of your fellow perfect spirits and start designing one of these dream worlds. Start designing one of these stories that you're going to forget you designed and you're going to immerse yourself into, and it's all going to feel like the only conscious experience you've ever had or ever will have. I mean, look how we incorporated the concept that when you're dead, you're dead. There is no waking up. There is no reality heaven. There is no home state of awareness. This was just some all weird, random happenstance in the middle of nothing, nowhere, with no intention or design or script behind it whatsoever. That's awesome. So you see, all I've done is just turn things upside down. And that's how we've gotten to the truth. But I've been turning things upside down since I was 6.5 years old, and that was 1970. So I've been thinking about this stuff a hell of a lot. I always stumble when I start to make that declaration. I wish I wouldn't, but I've been thinking about it a lot longer than you have, and I don't think there's any way you're ever going to catch up. So you got to remember, when you're listening to me, you're not listening to some dipshit, superficial, shallow-minded fuckface like yourself, who just, dilly-dallies around with philosophy and spirituality. I've been consumed and obsessed with this shit since I was 6.5 fucking years old. 1970. Do the math. It's 2019. It's the 9th of June, 2019. Is it bragging? Is it gloating? Well, I don't know. It's just stating the fucking fact, you faggot. The fact that perfect eternal conscious energy, the paradigm thereof, is not something that, I heard some other cunt talk about on YouTube last week or read it in a book. It's something that I've arrived at. It's something that I've concluded, with the help of many other people, not the least of which would be Alan Watts, Helen Schuckman, and a unexpected mind-blowing experience with MDMA in October of 1988, which gave me temporarily an experience of cosmic consciousness for a while, which was mostly just a very persistent knowing that everything was perfect exactly as it is, despite our ideas or conclusions that certain things shouldn't be happening and that certain things shouldn't be experienced here. When I was experiencing that state of cosmic consciousness, like I said, it wasn't a belief, it was just a temporary knowing that everything was absolutely on course, on track, unfolding perfectly. I didn't know why at the time. I didn't know about perfect eternal conscious energy, but that experience helped formulate the paradigm, and that experience has been feeding me ever since. It continues to feed me. I've never ever been able to fully forget that awesome temporary knowing of bliss. So as we were saying earlier, this this idea that there's different consciousness within your being here, it's not true. You are the perfect eternal conscious entity who is experiencing this temporary self. It's just that all the thoughts and feelings that you experience and all the thoughts and feelings that you express by talking or writing, it's all been thought out beforehand. That's what's mind-blowing. That's what's amazing. You know? Because you have the sense that you're sort of making it up as you go along. I say the only reason why you have that sense is because of the I mean, obviously it was intended, but within the immersion itself, it's a cultural thing where we all hold each other accountable. We don't let anyone get away with the defense that destiny made me do it. My destiny made me do it. Well, that's no excuse. We don't accept that. And so since you grow up with that, you know, it reinforces the illusion that you are making it up as you go along, when in fact you're not. When in fact it's all unfolding, unfurling, and unspooling moment by moment. That's why, you know, you often get that sense of where you're trying to make something happen and you can't make it happen. Even though you were forced from within to try to make it happen, you know, the fact that it doesn't, you know, indicates that there was an intentional thwarting there. Because it's obvious that no human being here destined a life where it was just one success after another, with no pain, no injury, no illness, no disease, no thwarting. It's obvious that every human experience here is a soap opera, so that no matter how smooth things look, no matter how promising something looks, there's always going to be some twists and turns. And it's all designed very, very brilliantly and intelligently so that we are fooled. Even if you think you have quote-unquote learned a lesson, you still get burned, you still get stung, you still trip and fall, you still slip and fall, you still... Some of you women still go for the same fucking men that are gonna beat the fuck out of you. Because that's the story. So the story is one of the main themes throughout every story here of all living creatures here in this physical world is the contrast of pleasure and pain, pain and no pain, satisfaction and dissatisfaction, feast and famine, lack and abundance. So I'm not saying you shouldn't pursue enlightenment or spiritual awakening or what have you. I'm just saying that there was no one around when I was growing up, so to speak, who pointed out the fact that any of these people who are considered Indian gurus or shamans or warlocks or whatever the fuck, any of them that are presented as somehow being elite and special and having achieved something where they're now full of joy, full of love and compassion. They don't get angry anymore. They don't get irritable. They don't get disappointed. They don't get ill, injured, diseased. No, they're like cartoon superheroes, you know. And you too, you can be just like one of them. And it's just a load of shit. All they were ever doing was presenting their public persona, you know, this role of being a fucking guru. Even if it says it's not a guru, it's still playing the role, it's still dressing the role, it's still sitting up there on stage alone, you know, amongst its fucking sycophants. And you read biographies about these people after they're dead, you know, and you find out that yes, they were just human, that they weren't actually elite, that they actually did still suffer. It's not good for business for them to admit such things, you see. if it was truly not important to any of those people that dress like gurus and sheiks and all that fucking shit, if it was truly not important to them, if they truly said, don't look at me as a guru, don't look at me as a messiah or whatever, then they would dress like fucking grease monkeys, dress like a fucking auto mechanic, a motorcycle mechanic, a caterpillar mechanic. But no, man, they continue to dress the role and perform the functions, and it's all just a load of shit. They're just this bunch of fucking irritable, horny, self-indulgent, self-loathing motherfuckers like all the rest of us. And again, a dream is a dream is a dream. So even if one of us dreamers criticizes the dream or criticizes the other dreamers, or any of us dreamers seem to talk or act as if we're somehow better or superior to the other fucking dreamers, it's still just a dream. We're still just dreamers. There's no lucidity in this fucking dream whatsoever. Lucidity's a lie. It's a lie. It's as much of a lie as clarity or realization, because it's just all a story that's truly unspooling and unfolding and unfurling. And yet, it unfolds and unfurls in such a way where we are forced, if you will, to pretend as though we're making it up as we go along. That we're living and making choices based on experiences and knowledge and so forth. And yet, I can see that it's just unspooling and unfolding and unfurling moment to moment. And that's okay. Like I say, this is the world where all the color and the action is. This is the story. And this beats being bored in heaven, no matter what we experience here. But it's definitely, you can't help it if you have to pursue the gimmick, if you will, of trying to find a way to turn shit into ice cream, to turn straw into gold. If you got to pursue that, you got to pursue that. That's part of your story. It was scripted before the Big Bang. If you've got to pursue the objective of trying to find a cheat code, to try to find a way to avoid pain, to avoid suffering, then that's what you got to do. You can't help it. But eventually you will realize that everything that you've done up till today, everything that you've done up until you began your so-called step onto the path of enlightenment or spiritual awakening or whatever, everything you did up until then to help get through the worst of times, that's all you're really ever going to have. You might pick up a few coping tools along your path of enlightenment, your path of spiritual awakening, but truly, you'll see when you get to the end, whether it's the end of the path or the end of your fucking life here, you will see that what you used as a coping tool before that path of enlightenment or awakening was actually the best you were ever going to do anyways. Like I say, you might acquire some additional mental, emotional, psychological coping tools idea-wise when you study enlightenment and spiritual awakening, but it still, all collected together, they're not going to prevent the pain and illness that you scheduled for yourself, because the overall objective here is not to be fully recovered, or it's not to be pain-free or problem-free or debt-free, or it's meant to be a story that unfolds and unfurls, and it's like one of those little roller coasters that go through a spook house. You're meant to be frightened and up and down, twists and turns, and that's it, Jack. And it does seem to end in tears for most of us here, one way or another. whether it ends, by diminishment and deterioration, or if it ends suddenly. The people around you are crying about you, aren't they? But think about all them people that are dying in hospices. What a place. What a place. They're all so ugly. The hospices in this fucking human world are as ugly as the goddamn children hospitals where they go to die, the children's hospices, the cancer clinics. I hate what they got on the walls. It's just all so icky and shitty. If you're dying, you should be fucking paragliding, you should be roller skating, you should be, I don't know. You should, throw yourself off a fucking cliff. Why you want to die in some icky, yucky, stinky fucking environment that's a combination of pine sol and piss, or pine sol and shit. Walk into those places, they smell horrid. They smell like fucking dying. Not death. Death is escape. Death is freedom, liberation. They smell of fucking dying, of putrefaction. It's like, why do you want to putrefy to fucking death, man? Throw yourself off a fucking cliff. That's what I tell myself. Don't putrefy to death, bitch. Somehow, some way, get yourself to a cliff and... I trust a 500-foot cliff a hell of a lot more than I trust a gun to my head or my heart. I don't like the idea of hanging. Don't like it. I'm amazed at how effective and fast it seems to be, having watched loads of live stream videos over the past 10 years of people hanging themselves online, live and in color. Well, what can you do about it, sweetheart? It happened all of a sudden, didn't it? It did. One minute it was sunny as heck, and suddenly it's just been pissing down with rain. And we just hung out the laundry on the clothesline. So going back to that point about there being only perfect eternal consciousness. There's not two different kinds of consciousness experiencing this physical human world. There's just eternal consciousness experiencing it. And you'll notice that, look at all the pain that you've been through. Look at all the fucking pain you've been through. Look at all those fucking moments that you went through where it seemed like it was the end of the world, where you were contemplating suicide or murder or going on a rampage or whatever the fuck, the grief of someone you love, having to watch them die. Remember all that pain you've been through, and yet here you are today, man, at the moment, shiny and bright. Well, that's the eternal consciousness, and all that pain, all those negative thoughts, all those negative convictions and feelings, those are just all the colors of the ride, man. They're the colors of the waters that you're swimming through, But you, the swimmer, you're not truly being changed or harmed by any of it. All of that colorful pain ain't changing you at all. And that's how you know you're the eternal fucking consciousness experiencing this temporary self. And it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly intended and okay that you identify completely with this temporary self. It's perfectly fine and intended and wonderful that you believe you are this temporary self. It's in fact the fucking finest achievement of immersion as intended by us as perfect eternal conscious energy, that you completely identify yourself as this human body in this face and believe that this is the only existence you've ever had or will have. That's the ultimate achievement. That's the ultimate perfection, Jack, you might say. To be completely immersed here, to completely identify with the feelings, with the colors, with the self, with the ego, with the vanity, with the pain, and the joy, and the pleasure, and the sweetness, and the kindness, and the friendliness, and the niceness. We're here for it all, man. And I'm just saying that even though it sounds contradictory or hypocritical or confusing. It's a destined existence that we have to play out as if it's not a destined existence. We're all held accountable here as if it's all free will, free play, making it up as you go along. But it's all just a story that's unfolding and unfurling and unspooling. And as I say, there's only eternal consciousness that can experience this. And you'll notice, look at all the different pain you've been through, man. Look at all the different pain you've been through. I'm speaking mostly psychological pain. I mean, physical pain sucks, yeah, but you can still have a good mood even if you've got a backache, man. It's not necessarily easy to have a good mood if you got a fucking headache, you know, or you got a fucking annoying toothache or whatever the hell. But basically, when I speak of pain, I'm talking about existential psychological pain. You know, just hating this fucking existence and hating humans. Reading the news and seeing all that fake news, all that fake shit. All that fucking generalizations with no proof, no evidence, no facts, no names, dates, and facts. You know, just a bunch of fucking generalizations. Calling people pigs and dogs and misogynists and this and that with no fucking facts, no evidence, no proof. You're meant to get all caught up in it, baby. You're meant to get wound up. You're meant to get angry. You're meant to pull back when you feel like pulling back, you know? And the thing is you don't know when it's gonna fucking end. No matter how elite, no matter how enlightened, no matter how awoken or awake you think you fucking are, you don't know when you're gonna die, and you don't know how you're gonna die. Every year, at least a few times, in a few places, every year, a plane crashes into somebody's house, or shopping center, or church, or hospital, or apartment building, and whoever was, you know, sitting on the toilet reading the fucking paper, or whoever was, you know, bending over and petting their dog, or giving it a bone, or whoever was in the garden, you know, repotting a geranium, and all of a sudden a plane crashes into them, boom, bam, it's over. And this happens in this world. And it's really peculiar, isn't it, how we always think that we're going to be the exception to the rule, how we think that that's not going to happen to me. I'm not going to be killed by a plane crashing into my house while I'm making a video. I'm not going to be dying of fucking lung cancer. I'm not going to be dying of brain cancer. I'm not going to be murdered by a fucking freak with a gun or a knife or a hatchet or a samurai sword. You don't know. You don't fucking know, man. That's the equalizer, really. The not knowing how, when, where you're gonna fucking die or be killed. And it would seem to me, logically and reasonably speaking, the quicker the death, the better. Whereas the slow death, the slow diminishing deterioration, the withering away like a wilting plant, that seems to me like a really horrible way to go. But the eternal consciousness that is experiencing all of that isn't withering. So if you know someone currently who is withering away in a hospital bed or a hospice bed, just know that the eternal consciousness ain't fucking withering. It's as bright and shiny as it ever was, ever will be, always will be. But if that eternal consciousness is completely immersed and it identifies itself with that body and believes that it is withering away and diminishing, well, again, that's the ultimate achievement. Because the fact of the matter is it's not being affected, it's not being changed, it's not being harmed, it's not being diminished. Nor is it being improved. Eternal consciousness has always been the same and will always be the same. And it knows this, and it gets bored with knowing this. So it immerses itself into one of these dream worlds that it creates, that it designs and scripts before the Big Bang. So yeah, I would say that that was the main point of this whole video, really. Was pointing out that there isn't two different kind of consciousness experiencing this human life. There can only be one consciousness that's experiencing this temporary life, and that's eternal consciousness, and you are that eternal consciousness. And the proof is the fact that you have experienced loads of different kinds of pain, and yet went on to have happy days, still went on to have moments that were nice, still went on to have moments that were okay, calm, nice, easygoing. So if you're feeling calm and easygoing at the moment, you're feeling alright at the moment, right now, as I'm fucking talking to you. Well, notice that consciousness has experienced all that different types of pain. Think of all those different times that you were immersed in the pain, completely identified with the pain, completely fucking ignorant and unaware of the fact that you are eternal consciousness and that you did this to yourself. And yet here you are today, still the same consciousness that you've ever been. Another way to look at it is, whatever age you are right now, assuming that you're an adult, notice that you're still the same kid that you were when you were 8 years old, or however far back your memories go. My wife's memories go back to when she was like 2 years old, or even 18 months. Mine don't go back that far. I have a memory of when I was about 2.5, and I had a fever, and I was in my crib, and I had delirium. I remember that. And I only remembered that delirium episode when I experienced delirium for the second time, which was in 1999, when I had a really bad case of the flu. But most of my memories start from about the age of 6.5, 7 onwards. And yeah, I'm the same fucking kid. Okay, so my vocabulary has increased since I was a kid, and I have a hell of a lot more memories than I had as a kid, and therefore I have more experience than I had as a kid, but I'm still the same kid, man. I'm still the same kid, somehow, some way. And so in that sense, I'm still, I'm the same consciousness, and no matter what I've been through, it hasn't changed me at all. Maybe the person and the role that I'm playing has changed in various ways, but the consciousness that's experiencing all of this hasn't changed at all. I'm still the same I am as I ever fucking was. Anyways, I think that's it for now. I am your Philobabblist Extraordinaire. I'm the only motherfucking philosopher or human being, as far as I know, on the planet talking to you about perfect eternal conscious energy. And naturally, it's not going to, I guess, be a very popular fucking idea, given the fact that the overall intention was to be completely immersed in this world and to forget that we are perfect eternal conscious energy. So this is, definitely further evidence of hell that I have such a silly role to play. To be a blabbermouth philobabblist who talks about the very things that we spiritually intended to forget. It's alright. We make the best of what we got. We got a loving wife. We got loving cats, loving dogs. We got decent people to work with at work hell, at the job that we have to work at in order to make some fucking money. I have to say though, I feel like I'm getting towards the end of making these kinds of videos because it's just too much like a broken record. And I feel like it would be more valuable if I were having conversations with people, if people were asking me questions about this paradigm of perfect eternal conscious energy. But that's not something that I can force. There's no button to push, there's no knob to turn, there's just no way to force it to happen. But nonetheless, I am Alexander T. Newport, your Philobabblist Extraordinaire. This has been the Al Newport Show. I have books available at Amazon. And I'm going to be migrating these videos from YouTube to BitChute bit by bit. Unfortunately, I've been attempting to upload videos to BitChute, and it seems to almost happen, and then it gets stuck in this video is processing mode for days on end, to the point where you just delete the video and try to upload it again to see if it'll take. So it's a bit of a slow process. But YouTube has obviously turned fascist with their censorship, with their idea of hate speech, which is just pure censorship. If you don't like what someone's saying, then you can plug your ears, you can walk away, you can change the channel, you can turn it off. But you don't attack the person that's speaking the speech that you don't like. You don't say that they can't publish the books. You don't say they can't publish the videos. If you don't like what they say, then you don't have to look at the books. You don't have to look at the videos. For you to say that you've got to protect society from itself, for you to say that no one should want to hear the speech that offends you, well, that's being very controlling and tyrannical. That's as tyrannical and fascist as human beings telling each other what they can and cannot smoke, or snort, or inject into their veins, or look at, or listen to, or stick up their asses. And they do it though, don't they? Because it's hell. It's certainly not heaven. It's certainly not paradise. Righty-ho. Well, make of it what you will, and we'll talk to you soon, I think.